UFO. Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for joining me once again. You are always most welcome. So today, as promised recently after my Gerry Anderson 60 years of Thunderbirds, it's also 55 years of UFO. The Anderson productions were either a year ending in 5 or 0, so it's quite strange really when they actually launched them. Now it was actually in September that both Thunderbirds and UFO were first screened, so I'm a little bit early, but I thought it was a bit of a quiet time on the modelling front, so why not talk about this? I can see you've all enjoyed it, those of you that have watched. What I've just shown you, the intro there, was actually from a documentary, From the Earth to the Moon, From Earth to the Moon, which is a documentary about the Gerry Anderson series. It's about 90 minutes, I think. It's quite a well worth your time. Especially if you've enjoyed this series in the past, as I have. I believe this is the finest of Gerry Anderson's work by some margin, and I have a great deal of enthusiasm and fond memories of Thunderbirds, which was my first TV show, first science fiction or anything like that I ever fell in love with, really. But this was, although it actually in some respects for me it came a bit too soon, because it was only 5 years later, and I was only, I think I was just 5 when this actually first came out. I've actually got something I'm going to talk about a bit more in a minute, but I've actually got the details of when each episode was screened. We don't need to go into too much detail, but something will surprise you, because I've got the DVDs, we'll talk about those, and the DVDs seem to be laid out quite correctly, actually. They look to me as though they've been laid out by the company that produced them. It's Carlton TV that ultimately, I think, had the rights at the time. And they remastered them. But they've laid them out in the correct order of how they were shot. But that's not how they were actually broadcast in the UK. They were a bit jumbled up, and I'll get into that more later. Anyway, so this is a documentary, which I'm just going to flick through. There's a couple of elements of it which I just wanted to show you a little bit of. There's Gerry Anderson himself, he's Captain Scarlet in the background. Can't have the sound on, which is very regrettable for copyright reasons, really. But let me just show you some of these images, because I think you're going to enjoy this, to be quite honest. So here we go. Ed Straker's car, we've got the moon shuttle, Subsmash there. We've got the UFO crashing on the moon. That's the one with Paul Foster aboard it when he got thrown out. There he is. Talk about that separately as well. Foster and Straker fighting. This is Peter Carlin, Peter Gordino, the actual actor. That's Regan. Is it John Regan? Was his name? Paul Regan. Was that the name of the character? I can't remember. Anyway, you get a little bit of a flavour from it all there, don't you? That really does say what this is all about. It's the very first live action series from Gerry Anderson. I'll close it now. First live action series. You'll see around me I've got some of the most amazing models stroke toys all over the place. I've got another Shado Mobile there, another one. We'll get into those in a little while. I think we'll just talk about, give you a bit of exposition first. Got a book here. This is the Robert Meow, the actual book of the series, the official book, and this is dated 1970, so this is a 55-year-old book in my hand. There it is, Skydiver taking off. We've got my thumb on Lieutenant Gay Ellis, Gabrielle Drake as we know her, and there's a shot on the back of Ed Straker, aka Ed Bishop, talking to Lieutenant Ellis. My goodness, I'm sure I'm not alone when I say, I've joked about this before, and I've talked about her and said that I think I had puberty 10 years too soon, seeing her taking her clothes off, and that's before. Later in life, she actually appeared in a film around about that time, I think it was just after, called the Opair Girls, and in that I can tell you that I only saw that in recent years, which is just as well, because it was a case of, oh my lord, that will certainly get your blood, your pulse racing. I can tell you that was an X-rated film. But anyway, I shouldn't have really mentioned that. I should have. Anyway, a very beautiful lady, and they all were. They were all fantastic, good actresses. Some stunning looking ladies, and good-looking guys. You know, they all look like kind of like James Bond, apart from our friend from John Cole, of course, who's better known for his role in Minder later on, even he said Trins as well. He's the only one that looks a bit rough around the edges with the most bizarre haircut. Some of the haircuts in UFO were very strange, the men's haircuts. I mean, the women's too, but the men's looked particularly... I don't know what was going on in the hairstyling industry at the time, but they looked just... It's like they were all trying to copy a rough version of the Beatles. It was bizarre. Anyway, we won't get into that. So, anyway, back to the sort of the way it was conceived. So, first live-action show ever... Everybody thought this was a mistake at the time. I remember reading about it. My dad read it to me. Said he was very sceptical, and he said, "This isn't going to work. It'll just be the same as everything else." And one thing that strikes you when you watch that documentary, which you should probably have a look at, I'll put a link in at the end, or I'll put it underneath the description, a link to that documentary. Anderson said to the likes of Ed Bishop and George Sewell and Paul Billington, the main characters, Wanda Ventum as well. She mentions it in there. He said, "Don't be very expressive because we're used to puppets. Our audience is used to puppets. So we don't want you to be very overly expressive and overly emotional. We want to try and dial that right down. We want to be very serious." And it was very serious. And this is why it's quite dark, I think. Why it comes across as dark. Some of the stories are incredibly dark. One of you said to me, just after the Thunderbirds video I did, a very good comment. One of you said, one of the reasons that UFO works so well, and sorry, Captain Scarlet and UFO, he said. Sorry, I can't remember your name. You'll know who you are. And he said, the reason those two series are different and why they work so well is you're never sure whether it was going to have a positive outcome at the end of the story. They didn't all have a happy ending. In fact, in UFO, I'd say more than half don't have a very happy ending. You know, some of the characters, there's a lot of new characters get introduced in each episode, and a lot of them don't make it, quite frankly. And it's very dark. Some of the things that happen to me. You've got George Cole. I said John Cole, didn't I? George Cole, who was in Minder, of course, known in the UK for his sort of comedic roles. And he plays a very straight, stressed guy whose wife, he's very worried about his wife. He's got a younger wife, and he's very worried about his wife and her safety and all this kind of thing. And he gets blackmailed. It's kind of a spoiler alert moment. I won't go into too much detail, but he gets blackmailed, and then he's just kind of sacrificed, you know, and then Paul Foster almost gets sacrificed twice. Once when he's abducted by aliens, and Ed Straker issues the order for him to be shot down, the UFO that he's in, when he's abducted. And then the second time when they believe him to have been guilty of espionage, which he isn't, but, oh, spoiler alert. But that is grim, where they go out to kill him at the end, and he escapes by jumping through Straker's ornate sort of electrical, I don't know what you call it really. He's got this weird graphic window behind his desk that has all these almost like lava lamp style really, but he jumps through this thing and escapes, and they send out the troops to kill him, you know, because they found him guilty of treason, and of course they realise later that actually he wasn't guilty, and it's kind of too late, you know, they've just had him killed. Anyway, or did they? I won't spoil it for you, but say they don't have the positive endings you expect in something like Thunderbirds or XL5. You know, even Space 1999 tends to have. It has a bit more of the darker side. It does have a bit of this, but as I said before, I'm not a. Unlike Jason Model Kickstuff, and some of you, judging by the poll I did, you quite like it, but I just thought the trouble is with Space 1999, it has one massive problem it cannot escape from, and it is the one-dimensionality of them always being in the studio, in the same. It's all on the moon. It's all filmed in the studio, and it doesn't have the multi-dimensional elements that UFO has under the water, in space, in the air, out on the ground. Yeah. Out in the countryside, out in the town, in apartment buildings. There's so many elements to UFO where it's filmed in so many actual locations as well as studios. And the actual the moon base, obviously, and the Shadow headquarters all filmed at Pinewood. But it's so much better for that because it's like a Bond film. It's got this multi-element, whereas Space 1999, the reason I don't like it is because I think it's dull. I think that the actors, I think the concept was wrong. I wasn't keen on the actors, if I'm really. They weren't bad actors, don't get me wrong, but they just made it just felt like the same, and just variations of the same in every episode, whereas in UFO, lots of different stuff happens, you know. It's not perfect, don't get me wrong. There are a couple of episodes of UFO I thought were just stupid, frankly. Timelapse, Mindbender were particularly ridiculous. One or two of the plots just kind of annoyed you. But there were, of the episodes, only about 10%. Okay, maybe 3-4 episodes weren't great, really. But most of them were brilliant and have, you're never quite sure how it's going to end or what's going to happen. And it made it very exciting, and it made it, it made it very watchable. Even as an adult, it makes it very watchable. There are adult themes in it, and it doesn't feel like Doctor Who, which is what I accuse 1999 of being. It's like Doctor Who on the moon a little bit. There's a lot of Doctor Who-ish stuff in it, I think, with monsters and daft costumes. UFO feels like it's a military Shadow. It does feel like a military operation, and it's taken very seriously, and it's just enjoyable to see the things they wove into it. And it's a shame they didn't get to do another series. But so I think there were 26, was it 24 episodes? Where are we? What's my list gone? Lost the list. Where is the list? Where is the list? Yes. Oh, sorry, I forgot to say as well, the final episode, The Long Sleep, was another ridiculously bad one. So, it wasn't perfect. I'm not saying that at all. And it did feel a little bit like they were running out of ideas, if I'm honest, which is probably why they decided to drop the second series. So there's at least 3 or 4, maybe 5 I could list that I don't like. Well, a lot of the others, there's some absolutely superb themes and original ideas that are thrown into it. So there were 25, in fact. People said 26, it's not 25. And I was saying about the dates, so I've actually got a list here. This is from the DVD. I'll just zoom in on this. This is the guide for the DVD set. Now, just zoom back. I should explain. You can now get this on Blu-ray, but be warned, because I know that many of you will. This will whet your appetite, I'm sure, when you see some of the models and things. Yeah, my enthusiasm as I'm the greatest ambassador for UFO you'll ever meet. It almost matches my Matchbox enthusiasm. This does. There's some fantastic shots from the series. There you go, Lieutenant Ellis. You've got. I'll talk about this in a minute, actually, about some of the episodes that there was. But you've got them. It goes through them here. It actually lists the episodes. Why does it only start with 14? That's a bit weird. Oh, it's because I've got. Sorry, there's one of these in each pack. That's why. And this shows them. Actually, as I say, this shows them, I believe, in the sequence they were filmed, and it makes sense because you've got. I just alluded there. There's Harry Baird, he's the black actor that was in the Italian Job. Of course, he was the coach driver in the Italian Job. Didn't do a very good job at the end, did he? Oops. Don't think Michael Caine's going to hire him again. But he's a fine actor. And of course, this is an interesting one because he has a relationship in the series, in one of the episodes, Computer Affair. He has a relationship with Gabrielle Drake, Lieutenant Ellis. And it talks about racism, and it's quite hard hitting. It's no messing about. Everything that they tackled in quite a serious, quite mature, not a childlike series way at all. And they talk about racism, and they talk about relationships and all sorts of things. It's very interesting the way it's attacked, and the way these subjects get tackled. But I mention him because you can tell he was only in, I think, the first 4 or 5 episodes. And then he went off to do something else. I think he'd already done the Italian Job, but he had some other contractual obligation, some other acting work. And you saw this also with George Sewell later on. He disappeared in the second half of the series, and we got Wanda Venton, Of course, she is the... More pictures. She is the mum of Dominic Cumberbatch, somebody you know as Sherlock, and of course he's been in Star Trek and stuff. Another very attractive lady. There she is on the back. And she replaced Alec Freeman as the Colonel. She was Victoria Lake, is it? I think her name was Victoria Lake. Colonel Lake. And there's Ed Bishop, of course, Ed Straker, who I looked worryingly like. I mentioned this, joking apart. When I was 7, 8 years old and this was all the rage, I actually looked like him. It's really weird. Yes, you won't think it now, would you? I had that was how blonde my hair was. And I actually, being serious about it, I looked like a spitting image, like a twin of his son in A Question of Priorities, where he has the accident. And I looked just like his son. Same build, same sort of height, same hair. Very weird, actually. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, like looking in the mirror, it's very strange. I avoided Ferrari Dinos on the road, though. Okay. Anyway, but I mention it because this thing about Harry Baird, the black actor, Alec Freeman, George Sewell, I should say, the actor. These guys moved in and moved out again, and you can tell that because they're in tranches of episodes together in the series, and then they disappear, which is fair enough, you know, it happens. But when you understand this list I've got, the list. This is really weird because they jump around. They're actually broadcast in a strange order. So, Identified is the first episode. I put Identity, that's just a mistypo from me. 16th of September 1970 was the first episode. And then it jumps around. It got Exposed, The Cat with 10 Lives, and Conflict. I mean, these are all episodes that were filmed a bit later. So, I don't know why they did this, whether it was to do with post-production or something. But it's weird. So when you actually watched it, you'll have seen people like Harry Baird and George Sewell disappear and then come back again. Kind of weird. And what's great about this DVD set is that they have actually put them in the correct shooting order that they were intended to be, I think. I mean, you know, things like ESP, that was a later one. Subsmash was a later one, and these are like quite early on, and then it goes on. I look down the list, and I'm thinking like Flight Path, Ordeal, Flight Path. Those are earlier ones. Computer Affairs, one of the very early ones, and it's one of the last 5 shown. It's really strange. So I say Harry Baird disappears and then comes back, and then disappears and comes back. I suppose in a way it's good when you're watching it because it becomes less obvious that they've gone and they're no longer in the show anymore. But it makes it a little bit weird because you can see that there's certain groups and certain themes that naturally flow on from each other, and it sort of, it's like throwing all the balls up in the air and trying to catch them again. Slightly strange the way I went about it. I'm pretty sure it's to do probably with special effects or post-production. So the order that you will buy the DVDs and see the DVDs in is the right order. Excuse me. Of how they were produced, I believe. Anyway, so I mentioned about the DVDs, and we'll get into specific details in a minute, but this set I've got in front of me, I'll just zoom in slightly so you can see them slightly better. This is the digitally remastered DVD set. Now this is not the Blu-ray set. I'm not going to move them because it'll just mess up my desk, but it's not the Blu-ray set. Now the Blu-ray set, be very warned about this because the quality is of course superb. But they made a fundamental error when they set up. These are, in terms of quality, this is digitally remastered. And this came out around about 2012, 2012, something like that. And then about 2015-16, they brought out the Blu-ray set. But they put it in the wrong format. They've got it in 4:3 format. So you've got these bars. You've got like a squashed up TV image. You can't have it full screen. And it compromises it very badly, actually. And you lose the benefit, I think, of having the Blu-ray. Because it's like, well, you know, if you compress anything down enough, it'll look better in terms of the image quality. It doesn't work. It doesn't work so well. So just be a bit wary. To be honest, I'm hoping that... I don't know why they did this. I can't see any technical reason why that should have been... It must have been for cost or convenience or something. This is the better version, the digitally remastered set. And it comes in volumes 1 to 4 and volumes 5 to 8. Collector's Edition it's called. And it's a very, very fine set. And as I say, this is the leaflet from it. and it's also, as I say, it's put in the right order, and it's got all the other series from Gerry Anderson that you can get, of course, at the back. You can get Space 1999, Stingray, Thunderbirds. It's weird because the Thunderbirds Blu-ray set is absolutely fine. This is why I can't understand it, really. It was a very strange thing that they did. So this one has got, there's Paul Foster in the sauna just before he gets abducted by aliens, which isn't cool. That was terrifying. We talk about it being dark. I think that's one of the darkest moments in the series, apart from Straker and his marriage and his son, accident with his son. Foster gets abducted by the aliens. Spoiler alert. I'm not going to tell you too much, don't worry. And it was really hard to watch because they put him in this alien spacesuit, and then they breathe a green liquid. That's why they have the green screen. You know, they breathe the green liquid. The aliens, they can't breathe our air. And then they must have given him a drug or something. And then they put him in the suit, and it fills up with green liquid. You can see him panicking, almost drowning in this green liquid. It doesn't actually drown because obviously they've given him some sort of a drug to alter his breathing technique or something. But there is a giveaway though. If you look very closely, I'll let you into a secret. It really scared me when I saw that when I was a kid. That was one of the moments when I thought maybe I'm not old enough for this, you know, because it seemed proper, gave me nightmares, that did. And then of course at the end they have to get him out of the liquid and get him breathing again, and he's coughing and drowning in effect in the air. It's horrible. It's really horrible. They're having this operation to try and normalise him. It's really hard hitting stuff. But there is a giveaway actually when you watch it. When it fills up with liquid, it fills up really fast. And how they did it, of course, I think it mentions it in one of these documentaries. It's actually almost like the helmet screen is in effect a very thin tank, and that fills up with liquid, not the whole helmet. But you can kind of tell, not because of any flaw in the way that you see it. It's really well done. It's just the speed it fills up at. It fills up his helmet, you think, in about 2.5 seconds, and it's just impossible. And it shows them connecting this pipe, but you couldn't get any pressure that would fill it up that fast. It just goes, and you're thinking, oh. And I remember when I was a kid thinking, that's odd. That seemed to fill up really quickly. But it looks real, the way that he's actually behind this sort of little tank in effect. That's the helmet visor. So it's obviously it's almost like double glazing, you know, and in between it's got this green liquid filled up. Very cleverly done though. Their effects were fantastic because Derek Meddings was the sort of effects supervisor and director, and he was fantastic. He went on to do all the Bond films and in the 70s, 80s, you know. Sadly no longer with us. Derek Meddings was an absolute genius, no question, and he made Thunderbirds what it was, and Captain Scarlet. Such a clever guy. He would always find a solution. He was so good at improvising, and he came up with all sorts of things. But that was the one where, now I've told you, I've probably destroyed the magic for you. Spoiler alert, you know. But it's very convincingly done, and it was typical of the series. Anyway, so in terms of the theme, we'll get into the vehicles in a minute. In terms of the themes, Shado Mobiles everywhere. You're going to love this. I've got 3 dinky Shado Mobiles. I'll talk about them shortly. But in terms of the themes of the series and why I think it is so good, it was kind of really seamless the way they have the live action and then the special effects done almost like in Star Wars or something like that came later. In fact, I'm sure, you know, some of these things, pretty sure that George Lucas took a lot of cues from UFO in particular, actually. I know he also took cues from 2001, but there's a lot of stuff in UFO which you can see being almost copied and certainly used in a different way in Star Wars. Special effects wise, you know. And the fact that they had all these dimensions where you had the submarine, which I thought was a brilliant invention, the way that they wove that in, to have a submarine that had an aircraft attached to it. It was fantastic. Sky One and Skydiver. No question that was visually a real treat, and again I've got some amazing models of these things here. But when you actually sort of look through the episodes, you sort of people complained about Identify, the first episode, saying the critics weren't that wild about it. But what I think people miss is it really sets the scene. And we talk about this darkness, and one of you was commenting about you're never quite sure how every episode's going to end. You know, in Thunderbirds, everybody's going to, all the good people are going to survive every time. Well, that doesn't happen in UFO, I'm afraid. So you can never be sure how it's going to pan out, and that's what made it very watchable. I think you're always, you know, it dragged you in, people you cared about, characters you cared about, and sometimes they just don't make it. You know, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And it was quite edge of your seat stuff, really. You felt invested in the stories in a way that I don't think Space 1999 was ever as believable, or it went off on this sort of Doctor Who style that I didn't like. But anyway, so the first episode, it was a little bit criticised for being a bit slow, but the whole thing really is exposition of what the concept of the series is. So it's absolutely vital, especially the final 5 minutes, which is very dark when he goes to the funeral at the end, you know. And he explains what the aliens are. They realise what the aliens are actually coming to Earth to do, which is very dark. Yeah, they're here to harvest your organs, basically. And they find evidence of an alien that's got the heart from Captain Carlin's sister from 10 years earlier. So it's very, very dark and gloomy, and you end, you know, it's almost a twist in the tail at the end of Identify, because you're watching it all and you think, oh, this is great, and then it ends with this brutally dark scene at the funeral, and you're almost like, it puts you into shock nearly, you know, and you're thinking, and that's the first episode, what's the next one going to be like? And then it goes off, and the stories develop, you know. And I won't go through each one because that would spoil it for people, but there's a couple of absolute standout episodes in the series for me. I think You Can't Escape from A Question of Priorities as probably being the best one on the lot, because that is very adult themed. Not really an episode for the kids to watch, I don't think. It's brutal. And everybody is shouting at the TV screen, because Straker, I don't want to tell you the plot, but Straker is very reserved and refuses to share with his colleagues his personal family's trauma that they're going through, and that this is a mistake, you know, and he allows his duty to override his judgment, really, of what's really important. And what he should do, of course, is confide in Colonel Freeman, and he doesn't do this. He won't do this because they're trying to capture this UFO, and they have to divert resources that Straker personally, his family, need very urgently. And he won't do it because he feels it's his duty and all that, and it ends very, very darkly and very, very badly. And of course his wife in the series, she's in 2 of the episodes, Confetti Check AOK, which is the explanation of how the whole organisation is set up. So it's like flashbacks sort of episode. It's actually really good because it makes you understand why Straker is so hard and why he's the character that he is, which isn't really made clear at the beginning of the actual series. And his wife is played by Suzanne Neve, of course, who was also in Mosquito Squadron, played the wife of... Sorry, not the wife of. She was in this relationship with David McCallum, who's... His friend Scotty had been shot down and they thought was killed, but he finds out later he wasn't. Anyway, I'm going off at a tangent. But she's a very attractive lady and quite a good actress, actually. I mean, this was proper emotional stuff, and she carries it off, I've got to say, with Shakespearean standards of acting, you know. The only thing that undermined it for me wasn't her. It was her new boyfriend, because he's getting divorced from her, basically. His marriage doesn't go well. Oh, spoiler alert, I've done it again. Anyway, so Ed Straker's marriage is basically on the rocks at that point. But what spoils it for me slightly, you'll laugh when you realise this, the guy who plays her new boyfriend is Philip Maddock, who played the submarine commander in Dad's Army, the episode where don't tell him, Pike, you know, your name will go on the list. He's the guy who had the list, yeah. And I can't get past that in my head. Although that was filmed afterwards. I think that was probably filmed at least 1 to 2 years later. As you can tell, he looks quite young in UFO. And he's also in another episode, Destruction, where he plays the captain of the Royal Navy, I think it's Type 42 frigate. He gets attacked by the UFOs, and he plays the captain. So he's in it twice, actually, 2 episodes. They're hoping that you forget, you know. He's dressed so differently, and they sort of get him up differently, so it isn't easy to spot. But I always remember him for this comedic role, and I expect him to say, "Striker, I have these drugs we need are on the list. Here is the list." But I say, Suzanne Neve, Ed Bishop and her make that episode so powerful and so dark. It's gut-wrenching, you know, and you want to shake Straker. It makes you want to shake him and say, get your priorities right. And that's why it's called A Question of Priorities, because he gets them wrong, I think. Anyway, Confetti Check A-OK is basically about his wedding and how his marriage then goes terribly wrong and leads to the divorce. So those 2 are the most powerful episodes, I think, of the lot. My other personal favourite, though, is Ordeal, the one where Paul Foster gets abducted by the aliens. And I won't say too much about it because it would spoil it, but that is also very hard hitting and makes you very uncomfortable watching parts of that, I can tell you. And it's just got these memorable episodes that there are 1 or 2 daft ones where, you know, people having, Mindbender is one of them. It's really stupid. And I didn't like Timelash. Timelash is the one that Mindbender, I beg your pardon. Mindbender is the one where they actually show the actual sets as sets, and he's imagining everything's a movie. But the trouble is, it breaks the 4th wall. In other words, it shows behind the curtain, and it kind of spoils the magic. Once you've seen that episode, it kind of spoils the magic for you a little bit of how this series is produced and how it's filmed, how the sets are constructed. I think that was a mistake. I think it was a big mistake in the series. I would have just, if I was advising Gerry Anderson, if I was Sir Lou Grade, I'd have said, we're just going to delete that, put it in the fire, that episode, because it was annoying. And it spoils your perception of the whole realism of it all. And once you've seen that episode, you never look at the rest the same way again, I don't think. Kind of annoyed me, I've got to be honest. And then Timelash is a bit of a stupid one as well, the one with Patrick Allen. Although he's very good at it. But when they're, not on these silly little buggy carts and things, a bit stupid that was, ridiculous. So I say, there was 1 or 2 that were really quite ridiculous. Another one that I did like, though, was the court-martial one, the one where Foster is accused of espionage. That's very hard-hitting as well, and you can see that he's been framed. And it's like, in real life, it's like when you've had these miscarriages of justice that we all know about in the public eye, where you can see that something's not quite right, but it's like a juggernaut that can't be stopped, the scales of justice, even though perhaps the evidence is not really utterly convincing and they haven't done enough investigations. Anyway, other ones I thought were pretty special. The Sounds of Silence. This is the one where the UFO manages to land and disappear into the lake, and it's about the horse jumping one, with Susan Jameson and Michael Jaston, who actually passed away very recently, by the way, a few months ago. He was also in Sherlock Holmes and many other things. Good actor. And the UFO, then ultimately they get all the mobiles out, and the UFO then emerges from the water, and they have this big shootout with the UFO blasting the mobiles with laser beams, and the mobiles using their cannon on it, and ultimately they sort it out, But that's very effectively done. The effects were fantastic. Another thing I should mention, Identified, the first episode, well, we're talking about the effects. Some amazing stuff I was reading in 1 or 2 of these documentaries, or watching I should say. How they managed to get the cloud sequences of the UFO disappearing into cloud. This was all done in the studio, It wasn't done with CGI. This was real physical effects. And they did it brilliantly. Well, again, Derek Meddings and his team, There are some wonderful documentaries on YouTube, about how these sequences were filmed for both Thunderbirds and UFO. And I think that these technicians that filmed these series, they didn't get enough recognition really. But anyway, there we go. What's the other one? Close Up. Is it Close Up's an interesting one because it talks. That's an interesting thing because it talks about couple of others to mention. Close Up is the one where it talks about understanding the scale of things, and they do a close up of Lieutenant Ellis's legs, which I won't go into any more detail. Don't worry, it's not a pervy thing. It's quite funny actually. It's all about getting perspective on things in life, and it's actually quite meaningful. And then there was the Psycho Bombs. This is the one with Deborah Grant and a couple of other actors that were very good actually. The guy from Randall Hopkirk was in it, wasn't he? I forgot his name. And basically these people have been mind-bended by the aliens and become human bombs, in effect, causing mayhem. Suicide bombers almost, you could say. And Deborah Grant, of course, is she was very young when she did this. I think she's only about 19 or 20. And she, of course, is the lady who played Jim Bergerac's wife in Bergerac, amongst other things. And she's a good actress, very good actress. And she really enjoyed it, but there was a few technical problems, which you can see in that documentary. Yeah, and there's just some imaginative stuff, you know, and it because it has this slightly serious tone to it, it doesn't really have much of a tongue-in-cheek. It does have it occasionally, but you get less tongue-in-cheek in UFO than you get in the Bond film of the era, let's put it that way. Anyway, I can recommend to you the DVD box set. Every episode is in there, but I don't actually recommend the Blu-ray because I think it might annoy you. I'm hoping that somebody else is going to come up. No, it's at the 55th anniversary. Perhaps they'll do it again and do it properly this time with so you can have it full screen at HD, you know. So why don't we talk about the models, because I know some of you have come here to see that, and we have got quite an interesting collection of model stroke toys here. So I think we should start with, inevitably we should start with the Dinky models. Now, of course, Dinky produced 3 different toys, if you will, for UFO. Ed Straker's car, which was this horrible, as I mentioned before, the cars in UFO were the one thing that utterly disappointed. All the cars looked stupid. They had these mini mope based weird sort of patrol vehicles which looked stupid, really daft, you know. The mobiles were like a tank, so they weren't a car, so I don't include them in this criticism. But the car, Straker's car, looked absolutely abysmal. It looked shonky, you know, it didn't look like a supercar to me. Paul Foster's was even worse, and in the series Colonel Lake, she ends up driving that, and it just looks the most bizarre. It's purple as well. It's just the most bizarre looking thing you've ever seen. They just got that so wrong, those cars. I think they should just made them a bit more streamlined, a bit simpler. They were trying to be too clever with these weird scoops on the bonnets. It made them look like something on the Dukes of Hazzard. Anyway, I wasn't keen on that, but they did do this Ed Straker car, a pull back and go car with gold finish. The gold finish very soon came off. It wasn't a great toy. And the other one, famously, of course, was the UFO Interceptor. I don't think I've got any photos of it, so I can show you. Because you can see in that, right at the moment, you can see the interceptors I've got here, which look as they should look. Not bright green, which is what we seem to suffer with. Let me just get this for you. Oh. Bear with me just a second, because here we go. Right, let's have a look at these images. This will make you chuckle. A lot of you will remember this very well, I'm sure. So this is the one we're talking about. Here we go. So this is the Dinky UFO Interceptor. Now what's wrong with this picture? Now there's nothing wrong with the actual picture, I can tell you. But there is something that will strike you as very odd. It's like, why is it green? It even shows it in the artwork as white. Why is it green? It's got green with orange legs, which is all wrong, completely wrong, and annoyed nearly all of us, I think. And I don't think they ever changed it, unless did they make it? Whereas with they did the same with the Eagles when the Eagle came out for Space 1999. That they later changed to white, and then they went to blue for bizarre and unknown reasons. But it was a bit annoying that you can only have it in green, and I think it upset. I got that on my 6th birthday, so that would be. Would that be 1970 or 71? 71, I think. No, I can't remember now. Anyway, it's about 1971 or thereabouts, and I got this, and I loved it. I mean, the proportions and the design is good. Fires a rocket, cap firing rocket. Some of you were questioning whether it fired caps and couldn't remember. There you go. I wasn't fibbing. So that you used to put the cap directly behind the rocket, and it'd be slammed into by this sort of plunger. But why they made it green? I mean, that was just that's how it should have looked. Come on, but that's a nice original, isn't it? That's a genuine one. I think I'll just to finish what I'm saying, we'll go with Ed Straker's car. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, it was pretty awful, to be brutally honest. My parents bought me this, and I was very grateful, but you know, I mean, it wasn't a great toy. It's not really Dinky's fault this time. At least they got the colour right this time. Well, kind of. But I'm afraid the actual car itself was really abysmal. I mean, just a stupid vehicle. They didn't really have doors that actually opened. They had to electrically. They had to actually physically do it with a stage hand. But what they did do really well was the Shado Mobile. They nailed it with this. So let's have a look at the Shado Mobiles, because I know that's something that a lot of you will be interested in. Now here I've got not 1, not 2, but 3. Hey. What you do get though, typical Dinky, if I just show you this, they have got a lot of variation in them. Let me just see if this can put them there and I'll get you a slightly better view. Let's move Skydiver for a second. Now can you see what I'm talking about here? What we've got now, we have got 2 very big variations already. We've got variation inside. So this one is, I think it's possibly one of the later ones. It's very hard to know. Very hard to know. So we have the swinging missile, and it's actually supposed to be a cannon on the series. A cannon pops out. But anyway, Dinky decided to use their sort of typical missile system, at least they had, which actually works very well. And if I just, I don't know if I can show you this. If I can show you. Oh, it actually hurt me. Ow! Bloody hurt. Yes, it fires quite well. It'll fire about 4 or 5 metres. No problem. And you've got the swinging top. It swings. And so there you go. So this one's got, it's got a red interior. It's got brown wheels. This one's got a white interior. And it's got, the top is orange, which I think was the first issue, actually. Now, if I just move this. Yeah, it's got the same roof on the outside, but it's orange on the inside, which I kind of found a bit odd. Wheels are the same colour, but the interior is different. The interior is different and the interior of the roof is different. Yeah, very interesting. And there were a lot of variations amongst them. To prove my point, if you just look behind us here, something even more interesting really. We'll just move Skydiver. We'll come back to that in a minute. All these different variations. Oh, what have we here? Let's come back a bit. What have we here? What we have here is a genuine, original Dinky box. This is not a reproduction, and I would know because I have a reproduction over here, which is a pale imitation. You can see with the printing it's all a bit fadey and a bit silly. That's not a genuine original. Okay. Good reproduction, it's better than nothing, you know. And it is, you know, it's basically a reprint. It's a scanned reprint, isn't it, of the real thing? But this is the real thing. You can tell it even by the colours. And this is 55 years old. Okay. So you can see how vibrant the colours still look. It's probably not been in the sun or anything, but it has got a bit bash. It's lost its end flap. It's got the internal flaps. What does it say? New Dinky toys. Meccano. Made in England. There we go, look at this. And then it shows the button release, flip over roof, rocket fires in any direction, flexible tracks, Oh, now here's something I hadn't noticed, if I'm being honest. I hadn't noticed this. Colour of model may differ from the illustration. Really? Well, that's very interesting, because if you look at the wheels on this one, they differ. So now we've got a white interior. We've got green, not brown wheels. So let's pull it out of here. Let me just zoom this back a bit so you can see what's going on. Sorry, just finish off showing you the top of the box. So I think the two sides are the same. Yes, they are. So now this one has got one flaw on it. So I have to admit, this is the least loved one, only because one tiny flaw. Some stupid moron, I don't know who did this, went and put Spectrum is green Spectrum decals on it, which I probably could remove, but I'm scared of removing the paint, so I've just left it. Other than that, it's all original, apart from it's got this typical dinky variation in colours. So there you go. Look at the green wheels, and the others are like a brown wheel. And this is just so typical of what was going on at Binns Road in Liverpool, the dinky factory. It was like a lottery, lucky dip what you got. This is what happened with the Eagles. Those Eagles, you know, I mean, the first iteration was in green. The second iteration was white, the one that had the little nuclear capsules, radioactive capsules. The third one, I'm trying to remember what it had underneath it. They brought it out in blue, and it's like, why are you doing this? And of course, most of you have already observed about the Thunderbird 2 in blue, which was just the craziest thing ever. Apparently, I was reading on a website, a collector's website, and they said somebody was asked a question and officially gave the answer at the time. Somebody wrote a letter to them, and the answer they got back was, the Thunderbird 2, the Thunderbird series is no longer on TV, and we felt as a manufacturer that the blue looked more futuristic. So let's make it a completely crazy colour, not related to the series. What? Some strange logic going on. But this was the 1970s, and manufacturing in the UK wasn't exactly at its zenith then. But look at these things, yeah? Look at the way they operate. This is without doubt the best of the UFO toys that Dinky produced, no question. Perhaps one of their best toys ever, in fact, in some respects. Certainly of this type of thing. Look at that, so there's no messing around with these. Look at that, and they all work beautifully, don't they? So there's my three Shado. We've got a completely angleable weapon. It can go up, it can go any angle you want. I've got all the rockets, I've got spare rockets, look. You're all thinking, you greedy sod, I want one of those. And they're all in original condition as well. They've not been messed about with. They've got very faint minor wear on them. One of them's got quite a lot of wear underneath. Yeah, this one's got quite a lot of wear underneath, like it's been played with. I've got a spare set of tracks, by the way, just to show you. I've got everything here. I've got a spare set of genuine original tracks there. So I suspect that one has actually been run around a bit on some rough stony ground. Whether it has had the bottom swapped out, I'm not sure. But it seems to be in original condition in terms of its paintwork. They all are. But you've got this variation between them of what colour you're going to get, the lucky dip from a Dinky, you know. But aren't they nice? They're pretty cool, aren't they? So that's your Shado Mobiles from Dinky, which I think doesn't need much introduction, does it? So I'm going to put that one back in its box. I really ought to do something about that decal. See if I can't remove it. It's a shame the box hasn't got the end flaps on it. But it's nice to have something with a genuine 55-year-old original box. So that's our Shado Mobile. So I'm actually going to move them over here, just to the side of me, while I show you the other things, because some of these you won't have seen before. So I think for the sake of space, I think we should talk about Skydiver next. Now Skydiver, one of my favourite elements of the series actually, if I'm honest. The way it was conceived. So you've got this nuclear-powered submarine. The one in my hand is incredibly heavy, by the way. That must weigh a kilo easily. And this is made in China, actually. But this is from a company called Vivid Imagination, who had the Carlton rights to produce this stuff about 10 years ago. Maybe 15 now, in fact. I can certainly recommend it too, though, because these people did a really professional job of this. Just check out this Skydiver and see what you think. I mean, it looks absolutely bob on, I think. In every respect, they've got the finish right, the quality's high, everything, just everything about it feels right, to be honest. And you've got your Sky One on the front, which looks just marvellous, really. Look at that. See the underneath? There's no, it's slightly weathered. It's got some post shading. Carlton Product Enterprises, made in China, it says. But Vivid Imagination is the name of the company that actually made it. Carlton is the licensee. And then you, obviously, what Skydiver would do, steam along, and then to intercept the UFO when they least expect it, it would then tilt itself into launch position underwater, and then, of course, Sky One would then blast it off. Absolutely brilliant, leaving Skydiver underwater. It's still a fully integrated submarine, as it was. So that'll be left behind. And then you've got your Sky One here, which is absolutely a beautiful little model. Look at this. And it's just excellent the way they've done it. It's even got the pilot in there and everything. Yeah. Really nice. Got the Matra rocket pods, Sneb type rockets. Quite how the engines work, I don't know. Intake's here, and the exit is here, which is kind of strange when you look at the actual profile of it, because it doesn't seem to have any means of ducting. But anyway, we won't get into too much for the... we won't go down that rabbit hole of tearing it apart, yeah? But isn't it beautiful? There's your Sky One. It's going to go off and intercept a UFO. So, I think that is, frankly, is an absolute winner. Very, very beautiful thing indeed. I've always enjoyed having this in my cabinet. I keep it out of the UV light so it doesn't fade. So I've got a cabinet and then it redocks. And by the way, somebody did, there was an episode of UFO which you can watch on YouTube. If you look at Paul Foster or Michael Billington, it comes up with this episode. And what they actually did is, the person on the YouTuber has kind of stitched together 2 episodes, but he'd done it very cleverly actually. And it's actually the responsibility seat. That's another episode I liked actually, which I forgot to mention. That's a racy episode where a lady journalist comes to interview Ed Straker in his persona as the film studio boss, and he's actually spying, and uncovers the fact that he is in fact a military commander. And he realises that she's had a tape recorder going and left it in his office. And he ends up starting to have an affair with her. And that's quite racy because she takes most of her clothes off as well. Jane Merrow, and she's an attractive lady. That was a racy one. It's also quite gritty as well. But the other elements of that particular episode is this stupid sort of plot about these guys who've got their own moon base, separate moon base, and I won't go into too many details, but it's a bit stupid actually. And he deletes that bit out and stitches it in with the Paul Foster episode where he gets abducted by the aliens, and it works really well. But the reason I'm mentioning this is it actually shows in an animation form, like a bit of a home animation, but he shows Skydiver redocking under the water in this sort of almost animation sequence. It's done quite well, I've got to be honest. It's worth seeing. So maybe I'll leave you a link for that as well, because it is worth your time, I think. And it's one of the 2 of the most interesting episodes. Also, Ed Straker races a Porsche and wins, and I don't think that would happen with that clunky, shonky car that he had, but anyway, very unlikely. Right, let me move that over there out of the way, because you've seen that. What a beautiful thing there. So, we're talking about Skydiver. I now come to the Konami range. Now, Konami is this Japanese manufacturer who make all these little miniatures, and most of them are sort of 1/144th or thereabouts. But they do them so beautifully. Now, these guys also do the Thunderbirds range. They make the most accurate models of the lot, in my opinion. If you want an accurate Thunderbird 1, Thunderbird 3, these are the people you go to. And if you want UFO, they are also the guys you want to go to. Now look carefully here. I mentioned about how I have the hots for Lieutenant Ellis. Look at this. Is it any wonder, quite frankly, but my wife's not watching. But look at this. There's 2 versions of her, and this is really rare now and quite hard to get hold of. So you've got Lieutenant Ellis is available in a sort of sparkly moon jumpsuit, if that's what it is, or with her miniskirt. Now, my wife doesn't really mind, I don't think. Gabrielle Drake is now an old lady, but she's still a very attractive looking lady. If you, I don't know if any of you have seen her. She still looks attractive, and she's in her late 70s, I think. Anyway, my wife has promised to get me Lieutenant Ellis for my birthday this year. Oh, it's the only one I haven't got to complete my collection. But they come in these little boxes. They call them, what do they call them? There's a term they use in Japan. I think they call them candy machine toys, or candy toys. Because they can get them in vending machines in Japan, would you believe? But this manufacturer is brilliant. These you're going to see with your own eyes. You won't need to be convinced by me. I'll show you. Example, back to Skydiver. Let's talk about Skydiver, but in a miniature. Look at this. This is absolutely epic. Have you ever seen anything like this? This is the Japanese attention to detail. Skydiver with Sky 1. Everything I've just shown you in a big model, now scaled right down into this absolutely beautiful thing that's not much more than 3.5 inches in length. It's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. And comes off the stand here. All the same detail is there. It's just superb. And guess what? Yep, Skydiver launches. Sky 1 is in the air. So small, I need to zoom this right in. So we're literally at maximum zoom now. Just look at that. I mean, how good is that? It's just epic. Put it on top of my hand, and there we go. It's absolutely fantastic, really, isn't it? All the detail that you'd expect. I mean, you can have that if you've got one of these people that's got no space and you can't have a big cabinet. You could put this almost anywhere and have it on display. Your very own Skydiver. And these things retail, well, they are hard to get hold of, I've got to be honest with you. They're not easy to find now, to source. There we go. Reunited with Skydiver. Look at that. I mean, how cool is that? Really? Uber cool, isn't it? That's uber cool. So that's Konami. Now, they retail around about the £15 to £20 mark, but they are hard to get hold of, and I obtained these a good, at least 10-15 years ago. And I've actually had them. You've got the Skydiver writing there, can you see it? Look at that, isn't that lovely? Superb. It comes on its little plinth stand here. Fantastic. Now I've had these in these little boxes. We thought we were moving about 7 or 8 years ago, and I actually boxed them all up. And I forgot about them. It's only when I started talking about this Gerry Anderson anniversaries. And I thought, where have I still got them? And here they are, and they're mint. Absolutely fantastic. So there's that's Skydiver and Sky 1. But we're not finished with Sky 1. We've got Sky 1. They do a bigger version. What's this? It's about... I said 1/144th. It's not 1/144th, that is it? It must be smaller. It's about... I don't know what scale it is. About 1/250th or something. I think this is about 1/144, isn't it? Or is it 96 scale? It's something like that. I don't know. It's hard to say. But this is Sky 1, the bigger scale version. Just on its own this time. And again, it comes in one of these boxes. You've got all the detail there with your Matter rockets. Isn't it nice? Let's just take it off the stand. He says, carefully. There we go. So, you've actually got 3 different scales there of Sky 1 that I've just shown you. Absolutely epic. Yeah, I'm tempted to think the first one's 72nd scale. This to me is about 96th. Or is it 1/144? I'm not sure that fin's not glued on. But aren't they nice? I think that's amazing. I really enjoy, getting these out and having them on display, to be honest. It's just an absolute pleasure. So there you go. That'll sort out UFOs. Yes, indeed. Let's put that back on there. So that's Skydiver and Sky 1. You've seen 3 different scales, different options. How about the UFO themselves? So we have the big one from Vivid Imagination, this Carlton company in China, which is nice. It's not quite my favourite version. I'll show you the one in a minute. But it's very well done. It's accurate to the way it's represented in the show. The only thing is it doesn't have any sort of stand or anything, any ability to spin it. That is the UFO. Look at that. Complete with the green band at the top, which is accurate. It's quite a big thing. This weighs about probably half a kilo, something like that, perhaps 400 grams. Yeah, it's nice though. Strange looking thing, isn't it really, the UFO? So that's a big one. Sort of roughly the same scale as the dinky mobiles, I'd say. If you put it there, it doesn't really look disproportionate to them, does it? It looks about right, really. Then we have, and this is perhaps the pièce de la résistance in some respects, the little UFO, which I think is the best one because it spins on its stand, look. And you can almost hear that sound, that whirring, buzzing, worrying noise. Aliens coming to harvest your organs. Take cover at once. Do 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 do. UFO. Isn't that nice though? Very cleverly designed, that is. These are now changing hands, by the way. I was saying that you can pick some of these things up for £20. Not all of them. These now, the UFO itself, changing hands for 80 quid. And the Lieutenant Ellis is 80 quid, at least 70 to 80 quid, no problem. So these are really very cherished and very sought after items. And if you've got the boxes, and I've kept them obviously, isn't that fantastic? That's absolutely cracking, isn't it? And that's pretty much the same scale, I would say, as your Skydiver Sky 1. See what I mean? It's about the same scale, I'd say. It's about, yeah, around about 72nd scale, thereabouts. Is it 72nd? I've got to be wrong. I think that's 96 scale. It's very hard to tell. Anyway, beautiful that. Absolutely superb and deserves its place over here. And then we've got, I'm going to just get this out of the way, but we've got the Shado Mobile in miniature. And again, this is about 1/144 scale. But these are really well done, aren't they? Absolutely fantastic. Look at this. And in the correct colour, this sort of a slightly grey-blue colour, which they were actually depicted in the series. Now, nothing actually works on it, it's just a static model. But very, very accurate paint job and the details. You see the transmission at the back. They've done it absolutely, nailed it. I mean, these guys get it right every time. There's some really OCD Japanese designer has gone to town on all these models. And as I said, you want Thunderbirds, you want Thunderbird 1, Thunderbird 3. You go to Konami to get an accurate one. Isn't it gorgeous, that? You can always hear the noise as they sort of unload from the transporter, you know. Make a noise like a something like a stalwart or something, don't they? So there's another one of your mobiles. Now we're getting into the more unusual items. How about this? You won't have seen one of these before, I don't think. This is the lunar shuttle and lifting body. So here's your lifting body at the front, which lands vertically ultimately. But then at the back you've got your lunar shuttle from UFO, which you see landing at moon base frequently. I'll very gently pull it out. Do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do. You see I'm starting to do the music. I'll get in trouble for that, because it's the brilliant Barry Gray, who deserves, a bit like John Williams did with Star Wars. I mean, he makes it, really, doesn't he? It's so iconic, the music, and so very 70s, you know. But here's your lunar shuttle, which of course takes off at moon base vertically, like so. Look at that. Looks like a fish, doesn't it? It's a weird looking thing, actually, the lunar shuttle. And there you go. That's what it looks like underneath. There's your engine at the back. How cool is this? That is very, very cool. It does have this weird sort of look like a guppy fish almost, doesn't it, at the front? It's just, oops, absolutely gorgeous and a very unusual piece. And again, these are very hard to get hold of now. So what I'm waiting for is one of you who's going to get so excited by this stuff and say, I'll give you £1 million for your entire stash of kits, including the Lost Arks, Matchbox and UFO. And I'll say to you, I want 1.3 million. So let's just reunite that. Let's just show you the lifting body, because I didn't show you that very much today. Show the lifting body. There it is, that it actually docks into to return to Earth. So this thing goes up into the upper atmosphere, edge of space, and then our shuttle comes in like so to dock with it. Okay, I'm not going to win any prizes for my singing or humming, but it just, you need to hear those bars of sound of music, don't you? Isn't that wonderful though? Fantastic thing. You won't see that anywhere else, I don't think. So that's a beautiful thing, and then even better, if that's possible, SID, Space Intruder Detector, which is the satellite in the upper atmosphere of Earth, of course, orbiting Earth, I should say, not in the atmosphere. And this is an absolute peach. I'm going to move that UFO, it's actually distracting our focus, isn't it? Right, here we go. Space Intruder Detector, SID. Look at this. Again, you don't see many of these to the pound, I can tell you. Absolutely fantastic. And the thing on top in the film, it's the series, it twirls round. That's the incoming radar detector. You've got a big antenna at the back, which is the transmission antenna. You've got your solar panel arrays, and you've got your thrusters, the two black areas there. I don't know if you can make them out actually. Probably not at this angle. I'm going to be a bit tricky with this because it can fall off. There's the thrusters. Can you see them? Here and here, either side of that antenna. And you've got the main dish antenna at the bottom, points back to Earth. One points to the moon and the other two point to Earth basically. So it's basically communicating, it's the transit sort of data point, if you like, between the Earth and the moon, and transmits all the intelligence and radar data. Isn't that wonderful though? Now that again is something very rare that probably most of you won't have seen before. And you know, for 15 to 20 quid, it's fantastic, really. And you don't have to build it; it comes complete. You just have to put your little radars on and one or two other parts to assemble it, and the job is done. I mean, what is there not to like on this, really? I just take it off. Look at that. Space Intruder Detector. It has a head like an ant or an insect, doesn't it? It's kind of weird. Like they modelled it on an insect. Interesting. So there you go. So that's SID. Let's see if I can get it back in there now. It's quite tricky to position this. There we go. There's SID. Huh. Fantastic stuff, eh? Right, I'm going to pop that back over there where it belongs. It's nice and safe. Then, last but not least, and we have 3 of these, what else but the UFO Interceptors, the sort of almost like the money shot, the glamour shot of the whole series, you know. And they are in the correct colour, not in green. So they look exactly as you see them in the series. Here we go, complete with a missile at the front which fires, well, it doesn't actually fire, comes off though, detaches I should say. How about that? Isn't that nice? So I'll just put it back in its plinth for a second. Isn't that good? You see the engines at the back. No metallic silly green paint job. Exactly as it's supposed to appear in the series. Complete with the pilot on board, and I have 3 identical ones. So if I ever wanted to do a diorama, I can do them in those little moon craters where they have their interceptor base. I'll just zoom back a bit for you. You can see that I've got a whole set of these. There we are. How's that? Fabulous, eh? Epic. Just fantastic. Just going to reassemble the one I've been playing with. They're basically made of resin, these models, in case you're wondering. They're not polystyrene, they're resin. And they're all the better for it, actually, and the fact that you don't have to assemble them or anything. It's a winner, isn't it? It's an absolute winner. Look at that. I put it to you, what is there not to like there? Because those are just epic. An absolutely fantastic collection, I think you'll agree. So there you go. So I thought I'd share those with you, because I know some of you may have seen just 1 or 2, but it's unlikely you've seen them all together. We'll bring back our fantastic, very heavy, this Skydiver. It's over a kilo, it's about 1.2 kilos. Be very careful with it. Skydiver, and then Skydiver. If I put them in sort of scale order, there we go. 3 Skydivers, all in different scales. Remarkable, and every one of them is excellent. You know, every one of them. I don't regret buying any of these items, not one of them. Now, it's interesting when you talk about costs. I think it's about £35 to get each of the DVD sets. I think that they come in 4s, so to get the lot you're going to have to spend about 65-70 quid, I think. These I don't think you can necessarily get very easily anymore unless you have a look on eBay or something like that. I'm not sure I recommend this one. It's nice, I like it, but I wouldn't go out of my way to spend a lot of money on that. This, on the other hand, I think is absolutely, because it spins and looks so spot on accurate, as they all are, these Konami items. They're worth hunting down, to be honest. So you should probably, take the time to see if you can track down some of these items, because they are very beautiful things. Dinky, of course, well, you've probably all seen. Just a bit of info for you that will amuse you, actually. This surprised me. I looked on eBay yesterday for these Dinky Shado Mobiles, and there was one that was kind of, condition-wise, was about that sort of condition. Pretty much mint, almost mint. I think that had the white interior. And there's these 2 different roofs. Did I mention that? You've got... I don't think I mentioned it, did I? Let's just move that mobile for a second. There's actually 2 different types of roof when you come to the mobile. I should have talked about this and I didn't. There's another one of these variances. I think that the original first issue had this smooth roof. I could be wrong. I was talking to a toy collector expert in a shop that were specialists, and even they were struggling to get the information. Can you see the difference in the roof? So one's got this contoured roof. It's almost like it's got like a grip surface on the top of them to walk on. The other one's just smooth with a line across it. So they're not the same. Just another of the typical variances. But so basically, go back to this one. There was one like this. Let's say one like this. Okay, one like this. Ignore the Spectrum stupid logo that somebody's put on. Ignore that. But it was in this sort of condition, pretty much almost mint. But it was in an original mint box. Now, you better sit down for this one. An original mint box, an original mint toy, not been messed about with. And it was £499, reduced to 465. I think 445, reduced to 445. So that's what they'll fetch. Now these that I've got here, it's got a bit of corrosion on it, that little bit of rust on there. Maybe that's not mint now. We'll go back to this one. The more mint version. But these in the condition I've got, if you've got it with an original box, now it's not a mint box, obviously, but in an original box in this condition, they're worth up to £250, £300. And you couldn't make it up, you know. So I've got a repro box, obviously, which isn't really worth anything, but it's nice to have. It does add, on itself, you wouldn't be able to get any money for it, but it does add to the desirability factor of having one of these, you know. So with a repro box, it's probably worth about 150 quid, quite frankly. They're expensive, aren't they? I was looking at some that were sort of £85 and they were quite a bit knackered, you know. And I suppose it's worth whatever somebody will pay for it at the end of the day. I mean, these are genuine original examples. They haven't been mucked about with. And I was at the toy store. I'll let you into a little secret. I'll let my Thunderbird 2 go for 25 quid. I don't mean the new one. I mean the one from 2015. These were just bashed out from China for Corgi. You know, they're not. And they're only retailing about 33 quid anyway. So I said, look, I'll tell you what, you can... Now I've got the new one, the more realistic one. I thought, I'll keep that. I don't need two. Because it's never going to appreciate like a dinky. So I just let the guy have it for 25 quid and he gave me cash, you know. But he was looking... I took one of these, this one in fact, the one that's got the Spectrum on it, because that's the slightly annoying one. But he said, oh, it's in good condition though, apart from that. It's fantastic. How much do you want for it? And I said, well, I want 130 quid. And he said, oh, I couldn't give you that, I couldn't give you that. I had the repro box and I said, well... He said, you know, I'm not knocking this guy at all, but he's got his business to run. He's got overheads and costs to lighting and everything, you know, tax to pay. But you can get 130 quid for it. I knew I could get that by what I've already seen on eBay. And I thought, well, there's several going for about 125, 135 quid, like I have here. It adds up, doesn't it? It's shocking, really. I was amazed. I mean, everything I've got here is probably appreciating in value quite rapidly, more than I'd realised, certainly. We're probably talking here about 1,000 quid worth of stuff. Yeah, because you've got 500 quid of the mobiles there, I reckon. Maybe more, maybe 600 to be honest. I reckon there's 600 quid of the mobiles then. And I didn't acquire them overnight all at once or anything like that, you know. And the fact that these are rare and they're 20 quid a piece, you know, so that's 700, 800. Between 900 and £1,000 easy on this desk. Fantastic. Incredible. Especially including some DVDs as well. That's another 80 quid or whatever. So there you go. Anyway, I just wanted to share it all with you. Talk about UFO. Try and get across to you what makes it so special though, because... Interesting the way that they were told by Gerry Anderson, the actors were told not to be too expressive and don't be emotional and be, because Gerry Anderson was used to working with emotionless puppets, but it worked because it makes it seem like it has a lot of gravity and darkness without going to Space 1999 levels of almost, some of it's like something from Hamlet, you know, it's just too slow moving. For me, Space 1999. That's why I was never a fan. I love the concept of it, and there are one or two episodes, especially the first one, that's quite exciting, obviously. But it just drifts off and it narrows itself down. It goes down a blind alley, I think, of just being how much more encounters with ridiculous aliens can we have, you know? Whereas this has got all these other elements. There's espionage, there's romance, there's politics, there's the space race. Close Up, I think, is the one where they're trying to clear space junk. That's quite an interesting one. And is it Close Up? I can't remember now. It was certainly one of them from that series, anyway, about that time. Conflict is the one where they're clearing the space junk. Because he's trying to get rid of the UFOs are sending out these little drones which are attaching themselves to the old NASA Apollo capsules and things that have been abandoned in orbit, all that kind of stuff. And there's all sorts of other stuff like ESP, which was a sort of about as is suggested, ESP. Cat with 10 Lives, that was another one about mind bending, and the aliens were using cats to monitor humans and all this kind of thing. There's some pretty dark stuff in there, and some very interesting themes that you've never seen explored before, really. Not much of it since, really. Yeah, the man who came back that's Darren Nesbitt, wasn't it? The actor who was in Where Eagles Dare and other things. He comes back and he's not quite the same character he was before. Just some very, very interesting themes, adult themes, but doesn't lose its charm as a Gerry Anderson with the wonderful effects, you know, the UFO rising from the water and all this kind of thing. Some really, really memorable sort of scenes that burn into the mind and they sort of sear into your memory. Some really fantastic stuff. It was a brilliant series, and it was Anderson was saying about Ed Bishop, who was not very well known as an actor at all before this, and proved himself. You know, he won his spurs. He was epic in this, really. He was so convincing, and he came across like he really was the commander of this organisation, you know, with massive responsibilities on his shoulders. Shows his marriage get destroyed, you know, shows him having an affair, and even sacrifices his own family, literally sacrifices them for his duty. It's very, very powerful stuff. Anyway, there we go. So if you haven't seen UFO, I would urge you to go and watch it. Pour yourself a beer and watch some of those episodes. Some of the music is a little bit 70s. I mean the incidental music rather than the main music. I thought it was very funny when in the Ordeal episode where Paul Foster goes and he goes back to his girlfriend back on Earth. It leaves Moon on the shuttle. He goes back to his girlfriend and they have this sort of wild party and everybody looks like hippies and they've all got this really hippie 70s music on. It's really bizarre. And then he gets himself a bit of a hangover and then he ends up at the medical clinic the next day. And it doesn't go very well for him, I can tell you. One you mustn't miss, Ordeal. But there's some just brilliant stuff to watch, and you know you can watch them again and again, and they never sort of get old. I think. I find I can re-watch these as an adult, whereas Thunderbirds I can watch them again. I think we all can enjoy those, but I can't watch them as often. You know, I watched Thunderbirds episode, and that's it. I'm done for 10 years. These, because they have themes that seem very relevant even today. I talked about to talk about relationships, to talk about racism and all sorts of things. There's a lot of relevance to the modern world as well, and as an adult, it's kind of more relevant. And it was clever that they were able to weave this into a show that was initially intended to be for children, but clearly wasn't. You know, it looks like it's for children, but if you listen to it, it's not. It's not. It's an adult-themed. Quite a serious series, and it's about very, very weighty issues, not least of which is their life out there, alien life. Something we should all reflect on, I think. You know, and the idea that alien life could be very, very hostile. It's a bit like War of the Worlds, a little bit of has a flavour of that about it, you know. And it's just so beautifully produced, fantastic music. Unbelievable special effects. For 1970, this is 55 years ago. This is absolutely incredible. Some of those effects are better than the CGI that you see today. Not all of it, but there's quite a lot of CGI which is just clunky. I watched the Midway movie, which is a great movie and very accurate, but the CGI, some of it is good, some of it is absolutely awful. Doesn't work. You know, if you've just put all your eggs in one basket like that, I'd rather watch Derek Medding's special effects to CGI any day of the week. Anyway, that's me done. Hope you enjoyed it and thought it was interesting. Hope I've convinced you that UFO is in fact the best Gerry Anderson series of all. I hope I've now shown you the true nature of the Force. Oh, no, that's another science fiction genre, isn't it? And I've made you want to go out and buy yourself some more mobiles and get yourself some of these fantastic toys. I just want to imagine when I was 8 years old playing with my friends and losing all our rockets, which used to happen all the time, unfortunately. I'm sure you remember the same things too. Hope you thought it was interesting. Hope you enjoyed the show and you found these little talks quite amusing. I think it's opened your eyes to some of the things you can get in the market. Some of them are hard to get now, but shouldn't put you off trying. And do get yourself those DVDs, because something you can enjoy for years to come. Really, really quality entertainment. Something I said to somebody, it was Lee Fennell, one of the viewers, Lee Fennell, of course. Quick mention for him at the end, very important. His father Alan wrote some of the scripts. He wrote the script for ESP, the episode ESP, and the Sub Smash episode. And he did a load of the scripts for Thunderbirds and Stingray. And his father also wrote, I think it was the screenplay and the book. I think he wrote the book Digby, the Biggest Dog in the World, which I actually read when I was a kid in about 74, 75. It was the book that we had to read at school, and the movie came out shortly afterwards. So isn't that amazing that one of my subscribers has actually had his father physically actively involved in creating this great work? So hats off to Lee, to his father Alan, his late father, sadly no longer with us, but what a great thing to tell people, my dad did this, you know. And I thought my dad was doing well when he worked for British Aircraft Corporation, but this is just so enjoyable, brings so much joy to people, you know. What a great story to tell. So well done to Lee, and many congratulations to what your father achieved. That's fantastic. Excellent stuff. So anyway, thanks very much for watching. Hope you'll tune in again in the near future. I'm sure we'll have some more interesting stuff coming up in the not too distant. I am going to have a little bit of a break for a few weeks, I think, now. And until next time, thank you very much for watching. Thanks for all your time. Hope it was enjoyable for you. Don't forget to leave us a comment. Don't forget to give us a like, give us a thumbs up. 10 out of 10. And until next time, look forward to seeing you all again soon. In the meantime, thanks a lot. And bye for now.